The materials you're going to need is a pen to mark with, you're going to need pins, you're going to need fabric scissors, you're going to need fleece, a darker and lighter color, faux fur, and a satiny color fabric. You're going to need hot glue and stuffing as well. To start, you're going to fold your fabric and you're going to measure 5 inches away from the bottom edge of your fold. And then you're going to measure a dot that measures 10 inches up along the fold. And then you're going to draw a diagonal and you're going to have a nice, cute gnome hat. Once you're finished with that, you're going to cut one piece of fabric that is 6 inches by 10 inches. It's going to be a nice rectangle. And you can use a rotary blade or you can use a pair of scissors. Once you cut it out, you're going to fold it small sides together and stitch it. Once you're done sewing that, you should have a cute little tube and you're going to fold it out like that and kind of finger press it, and then you're going to sew one of the bottoms. Alrighty, once you've got that done, you can kind of take your tube and lay it out flat like that and open up the seams for your bottom. And you're going to take it and you're going to measure 1 inch from the base, as you can see there. And you're going to mark it and sew down that little line and then trim the excess off to make a boxed corner. Once you have both corners sewn like that, you can use your scissors and trim off the excess about 1/4 inch away from your stitching. Be careful not to cut any of your stitching. Flip your plushie right sides out and you should have the base of your gnome. Make sure you poke out all the corners, and then with the back seam, that will be the back, and the smooth side will be the front. Now you're going to take your stuffing and you're going to very firmly stuff your little gnome. If you want, you can put some poly pellets or rice in the bottom and it will make it stand up by itself, but this is going to be a little plushie, so I decided to skip that step. Finish stuffing your plushie, and then once you're done, you're going to take a needle and a thread and you're going to go all the way around the edge of your plushie with a big straight stitch, and you're going to pull it tight just like a drawstring bag. Pull it nice and tight, and once you have that done, you can do some tack stitches from one side to the other, and you can even keep going all the way around like I'm doing here. This will just make sure that it's extra secure. If you don't want to stitch, you can have a little bit of a taller gnome plushie with a little bit less stuffing in it, and you can just wrap a thread around the opening, as you can see there, and it will naturally close. But this is just super sturdy and the easiest method. Once you finish sewing up your little gap, I would recommend smushing your plushie a little bit to adjust the stuffing fit. And I'm just wrapping my hat around to see how it's going to look. Once you're happy with that, you can take the hat off, fold it in half, right sides together, and sew up the triangle. Once you finish sewing, you should have a hat that you can easily flip right sides out. Once you have the hat mostly flipped, you want to make sure that you're poking out that corner nicely. If it helps, you can do little clips along the seam and chop off the very top point to make it easier to get that cute little gnome point. And if you want, you can sew a pom-pom or something else to the tip of the gnome, and it's going to look so cute. Clip off that back seam, and then you can try it on your gnome. You can push it as far up as you would like, but I would recommend matching the seam of the hat with the back seam of the gnome plushie, so that all those nasty little seams can be tucked away in the back and you can be left with a cute little gnome face. After an abrupt change in scenery, we are left with a hot glue gun. You're going to trace out a small triangular shape out of your fabric, and you're going to cut this out. While you're cutting this out, I would recommend having your hot glue gun heating. You can make your beard any size you want. I'm just kind of roughly sketching out a triangle-ish shape that will fit my gnome. So I would recommend cutting it out a little bit bigger and then trimming it down to size if it doesn't fit. After an abrupt change in scenery, we are left with a hot glue gun. You're going to trace out a small triangular shape out of your fabric, and you're going to cut this out. While you're cutting this out, I would recommend having your hot glue gun heating. You can make your beard any size you want. I'm just kind of roughly sketching out a triangle-ish shape that will fit my gnome. So I would recommend cutting it out a little bit bigger and then trimming it down to size if it doesn't fit. After you've checked for shedding, you can try it on your little gnome. If you want, you can actually put it on the seam though, and that will hide the seam completely. But if you don't want to put it on the seam, you don't have to. You can just make the seam the back and it'll look the same. But for a more professional polished look, put the beard on the seam and the seam of the hat in the back. So once you kind of get that on, you can see if you want to fiddle around with the hat a little bit and see how it looks, but if not, that's okay. You're going to add a small drizzle of hot glue onto the very back. You don't want to feel this through, so just make sure that it's a very thin drizzle. It's just to hold the beard on because we're going to sew it in a second. Alright, now you're going to place your beard on your gnome and you're going to massage it in place. You don't want that hot glue hard and stiff, so I'm smushing it around a lot. Be very careful not to accidentally burn your fingers. That's why I recommend adding a small amount. But hot glue works very well with fuzzy surfaces. So if you absolutely have to hot glue fabric, do it fuzzy on fuzzy. It works so much better. And once you're finished smushing it, you can grab a hand needle and thread, and you can stitch all the way around the perimeter of the gnome using a whip stitch. Alright, so basically I've just cut out a circle of fleece that is a lighter tan color. It doesn't really matter what size. And I'm going to stitch all the way around it. Okay, never mind. It does matter what size. You want to make it like maybe 2.5, 3 inches in diameter and stitch all the way around. You can make it bigger or smaller, but that's how big your nose is going to be. So just take that into consideration. You can also use wood rounds if you have them. I know I have them somewhere, I just can't find them. You know, the one time where I actually have to film a video when I can't find what I need. So frustrating. But you can easily make this version out of fabric, which is actually probably better for stuffy that a child's going to play with. So you're going to stitch all the way around using a running stitch, a big fat one. And then you're going to kind of pull it partially closed while shoving as much stuffing as you can possibly cram in there. That's going to make a firm but yet squishy gnome nose. You can play around with the placement of your gnome nose. I like to kind of put the hat on first to see where I want the hat to sit and where I want the nose to be. But once you get that decided, you can add a little bit of hot glue to your nose, stick it to your hat, and then use the same thread that's already attached to finish sewing the nose down. I like to use a combination of hot glue and hand stitching because it helps base the stitching in place and just hold everything together very well, especially if it's going to be a child's toy. If it's not going to be a child's toy, you probably don't need to sew it. You can probably just hot glue it, but it might not last as long. So once you kind of finish with how you want it placed, glue your little nose on using a small amount of hot glue, okay? I like to shove up the hat a little bit because I like my hat to stick over the nose. So if you do as well, just scoot your hat up just a little bit before adding that hot glue. Alright, so as you can see, I'm just sewing down the nose right now. And I'm just doing a couple stitches and then adding some hot glue. Be very sparing with the hot glue. And what little you do put on, make sure you smush on very well. And then just finish ladder stitching the nose in place. And then once you finish that, you can kind of play around with the hat and see how you want to place it. And once you figured out how you want to place it, you can glue it in place. I'm setting the gnome hat on my gnome. And then I'm going to fold some of the seam allowance in under a little bit so it's not as fuzzy on the outside edge. And then I'm just making sure that the back is where I want it, pushing everything down and getting it all snug and into place. And then I'm going to add a very small amount of hot glue to the tip of the nose and to glue the hat onto the nose a little bit like that, as you can see. And all the way around and folding and tucking and getting it the way I want it to be. And then I'm going to add very sparing amounts of hot glue and massage them into place just like I've done for all the other steps that use hot glue. Just make sure that you're not using too much and it's not going to clump at all. And if you want, you can sew this down instead. I just think that hot glue is fast and easy. Once you've had your hat smushed into place, I'm just lighting a match and cutting a couple pieces out of this really shiny, kind of plasticky gray fabric. And yeah, this is like a satin fabric, and I'm just using a match to carefully finish the two long edges off. And I'm also cutting a long skinny strip of fleece, and this is going to make like the little ammo band that all Chewies should have, and it's going to look super cute and be the finishing detail. Also, a warning, please have parental supervision if you're a child or a teen doing this. This is very dangerous and I do not want you to burn down your house. Alright, once you have that taken care of, you're going to lay out your little silver bands how you want them, and then add a small amount of hot glue to your fleece strips. Your silver bands should be slightly longer than your fleece strips so that you can fold them down under. Make sure that you're pressing well and good, and it doesn't really matter if you use a little bit too much hot glue for this because it's going to be flat anyway. But once you have that done, you can flip it over, add a little bit of hot glue there, and be very careful when you're folding it under because it's so easy to burn yourself. Trust me, I have gotten nasty white blisters from hot glue. I cannot stress it enough. It hurts so bad. So be very careful. Do this step with the other band and the other side of this band, and then you can attach your little band to your gnome however you want using hot glue and or hand stitching. And then once you have that done, your little Chewbacca gnome is complete. But don't click off, there's a kitten update. Alrighty, at this point you're probably already done, so don't forget to please like and subscribe to the channel if this was helpful, and comment down below any video ideas that you guys would like to see. Don't forget there's a kitten update, so stay till the end.
You want to show the world how pregnant you are? You don't really look it, but you're coming up on your due date. You're over grooming and you're nesting. Yeah, and you're pretty vocal. So we had to bring you in here. I'm very sorry, you're a barn kitty. but winter's coming up and we don't want you and your babies to freeze. Are you gonna take care of them this time? You have a bad reputation for being too rough with your little babies and for them not making it out. Jax and Scruff are your babies. They're doing so good now. And this will hopefully be your very last litter because you're gonna go to the vet soon. And we're gonna fix you all up. Yeah. I'm sorry, Mama. But if you get used to it now, then you won't have to get used to it while you're having your babies. It would be a double stress, and that wouldn't be fun. Yeah, you're doing so good. Your cage is all covered. And you're in the sunroom, so nobody's being noisy. You just gotta settle in. And get you food and water and a nesting box. And some chuck cloths so you don't leak anywhere. You're being a good girl. You're settling in very nicely. I'm very sorry for all of this, Mama. But I can see the babies rippling in there. So they're coming out pretty darn soon here. Yeah. You're so sweet, Mama. Can you say bye-bye? Can you say it? Bye-bye.